protocol having been observed, I'll let my colleague, Natasha, have her opening as well. So what we're going to do today, myself, Sophia Dolphin, with Natasha, we are two members of Brand Youth, so we are going to share the stage, the podium together today. So Natasha, take it away.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for gathering here to share this experience and idea, but also to celebrate the strength and resilience, the leadership and achievement of women in our community and beyond. Now we'd like to introduce our speaker, to give the opening remarks.
Before we do that, let's
Okay.
So we are going to be sharing the mic together, and one of the things that we would like for you guys to do is pay keen attention, because during the entire session there might be random giveaways of amazing things. Now, one thing about Brand Youth, we love to give. All right? So on behalf of the Brand Youth Global, it is our pleasure to welcome all of you to the final forum of the Women's Forum Series 2026. Over the past several weeks, this series has brought together voices from across sectors and generations to engage in thoughtful conversations around identity, leadership, transformation, equity, visibility, resilience, and the evolving experience of women in society. This year's theme, From Tradition to Transformation, Breaking Barriers, Shaping the Future of Women, has challenged us not only to reflect on what we have inherited, but also to consider what we are now prepared to challenge, reimagine, and ultimately build.
We are deeply honored this afternoon to be joined by the Chancellor of the Judiciary, the Honorable Madam Justice Roxanne George.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, introduce her.
Justice Roxanne George, Acting Chancellor of the Judiciary. The Honorable Madam Justice Roxanne George serves as Acting Chancellor of the Judiciary of Guyana. She previously served as Acting Chief Justice, having been appointed a judge of the High Court in 2004 and elevated to the Court of Appeal in 2017. Before joining the bench, Justice George served for more than a decade in the chambers of the Director of Public Prosecution and held the position of Acting Director of Public Prosecutions from 2002 to 2004. She holds a Bachelor of Laws with honors from the University of the West Indies and a Certificate of Legal Education from the U Voting Law School, where she was awarded Most Outstanding Student. She also earned a Master's of Studies in International Human Rights Law from the University of Oxford, graduating with distinction. Justice George is the recipient of Guyana's National Award, the Cassie Crown of Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Justice.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I was hoping it wouldn't be too long because my remarks are very short. But thank you very much for doing the research. Mesdames Chairs, distinguished panelists and guests, the protocol having been established. A very good afternoon to you all. I must, of course, start by thanking Brand Youth Global and Mr. Selwyn Collins for inviting me to make these very, very brief remarks to set the tone, and I do hope that I succeed in setting the tone for what I know will be an interesting and enlightening discourse under the overarching theme for the 2026 series of panel discussions, From Tradition to Transformation, Breaking Barriers, Shaping the Future of Women. In Guyana, as in the world, I think we can all agree with the saying that women hold up half the sky. In fact, I would want to say that women hold up more than half the sky. And as was also said many, many years ago, and I quote, they talk about a woman's sphere as though it had a limit. There's not a place on earth or heaven. There's not a task to mankind given. There's not a blessing or a woe. There's not a whispered yes or no. There's not a life or death or birth that has a feather's weight or worth without a woman in it. We have much to be proud of in Guyana regarding the contribution of women to the development of our country. We have much to celebrate in terms of opportunities that have opened up to and that have been given to women. which are in consonance with the fundamental right in Article 149F of the Constitution of Guyana, which provides that every woman is entitled to equal rights and status with men in all spheres of political, economic, and social life. All forms of discrimination against women on the basis of gender or sex are illegal. So that's what our Constitution says, laying that foundation. Women are movers and shakers in the public and private sectors. And as we have heard from the panel discussion on April the 16th last, they're doing so in many non-traditional fields and ways. We heard from women who with determination commanded space in non-traditional areas. And as I listened to the second panel discussion on May the 2nd, I heard from the panelists of the importance of mentorship and teaching women and girls to have confidence in themselves. Therefore, it is crucial that women who are in positions of influence by powerful messaging challenge gender stereotyping, myths, and social norms which discriminate against women. Much more still needs to be done to achieve equality and equity, more so in the context of the geographical spread of Guyana, to encourage countrywide activism for women's rights to be seen, heard, counted, to be free from fear and violence, so that they can lead meaningful lives. In sum, for a woman's right to be respected. Women and girls throughout the length and breadth of Guyana need to be nurtured by the voices of mentors who will inspire them to challenge the status quo. We must inspire a new generation of many, many women and girls to take up the mantle, to lead with courage and conviction. In this way, we will break the spatial barriers and build bridges and pathways to allow more women and girls to excel in whatever they want to do that adds meaning to their lives and strengthens our communities and ultimately our country. It's not going to be easy. And forums such as these, encouraged by Brand Youth Global, are impactful and a step in the right direction to influence how we will reshape the systems that will engender the transformation that we all want to see and experience. It is my understanding that this afternoon's discussions will build on the previous engagements and explore how women navigate and influence institutions, challenge structural limitations, and help create more inclusive and equitable pathways with business, government, education, and civil society and other areas in order to become leaders and decision makers. We have reflected much on what women's rights mean, that women's rights are human rights. We must now more concertedly continue action, giving direction, guidance, and therefore hope of true equality to women and girls in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chancellor, for those insightful and inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to invite the founder and CEO of Brand Youth Global, Inc., Mr. Selwyn Collins, to deliver his remarks. Before that, Sophie is going to do the introduction of Mr. Collins. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. And introducing Selwyn Collins, I was reading, we activate, we connect, we advance. And that's exactly what Selwyn Collins, he does every single day. So it gives me a great privilege to introduce Selwyn Collins, who is the founder and the CEO of Brand Youth Global and the architect of Brand Youth Global Exchange, an evolving ecosystem connecting people, skills, and the opportunity across Guyana and the diaspora. Through initiatives such as Conversations with Selwyn, the 2019 Forte on the Forte Entrepreneurial Awards, the 2025 Next Gen 12 Entrepreneurial Awards, and the 2022 Intergenerational and International Women's Forum Series, he has created spaces for dialogue, recognition, mentorship, and that collective action. His work brings together entrepreneurs, professionals, creatives, and civic-minded citizens committed to shaping possibility into progress. Selwyn is a published author of several books and a recipient of multiple awards for entrepreneurship and community development. He is honored to sponsor the Women's Forum series as part of his commitment to building ecosystems where talent, including women across Guyana and the diaspora, can lead. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Selwyn Collins.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chancellor and all the distinguished guests. And I don't know whose decision it was for me to follow the illustrious Roxanne. But I'm going to try. First of all, to the panelists, thank you for saying yes. This evening, this afternoon, is more about relationships than anything else. And I often impart upon my mentees and friends that without relationships, everything stops. Infrastructures do not prevail. Relationships are everything. And it's not just building a relationship, it's having the deep and uncomfortable conversations to deepen those relationships and expand them. Some of you wonder, how is it possible for me to invite certain people and they show up? How is it possible for me to come to a place like Guyana, who everybody say I will never go there and do an event, and these events come true? It's based on relationships. It's based on respect. At our last award in 2025, I made a comment about how important it is to respect people, not just for your personal relationships, but also the institutional relationships. I am friends with some very accomplished people in this country who I can send a WhatsApp or a text to, but I never forget to invite them officially because I respect their institution. And that is something we must never ever forget. This afternoon, I want to talk a little bit from where we came from. In 2022, we started this conversation bringing together intergenerational and international women to convene on Saturday mornings, which they did for 7 consecutive weeks. But it just wasn't about talking. It was about women exploring very important topics, very uncomfortable topics, and that worked. The whole idea came about because, as you've heard, I'm the founder of Brand Youth Global, an organization that hosts several women, lots of women actually. And it is my belief that if we could connect these women with, these young women, with women from other generations and other countries who are experts in their fields, who are seasoned, imagine what can be activated. And so, while this is a bold step, it's a necessary step. And I'm so glad to see each and every one of you here this evening. In 2022, hold on. This is why I don't like to read. Okay, here we go. So, we started in 2022. The theme was from tradition to transformation, breaking barriers, shaping the future of women. We asked, what shaped us? What did we inherit? And what we need to question? Our theme for the series, from transformation to impact, shaping what comes next, a conversation on moving from insight to action, shaping systems, defining legacy, and building what comes next. Now in 2026, we ask, who do we become? I grew up in a home with many sisters. And of course, sometimes there are sibling rivalries and misunderstandings. And my mother had a recurring theme. She would say, talk it out. As a child, I didn't understand what that meant. Even as a teenager, I couldn't get it. But as an adult, when clarity came, and upon reflection, I realized how wise my mother was. She was encouraging them to develop, not only to develop their relationships, but to maintain and sustain those relationships. Because what I remember clearly, that when they fought, within minutes, within hours, but by the end of the day, they were always back to normal, laughing and giggling and grinning. And that is something, one of the reasons why I encourage conversations, because we spend too much time talking at each other, especially in this country. When you see a friend, you see a neighbor, you see someone working on an idea, don't step back or sit back with your hands folded, hoping that they will fail so you could say, aha, I got you. If you have the skills, the knowledge, the ability to step in and offer an assistance, do that. Because when they succeed, not only their homes succeed, their communities succeed and our nation succeed. So there's one last thing I must say to you, is encourage meaningful conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Selwyn, for those encouraging words. Now we'll introduce, get our panelists to get ready to have your seats on stage as my colleague introduces the moderator for the first panel.
Thank you, Sophie. Our moderator for the first panel is Ms. Cathy Smith. Cathy Smith is the president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry and managing director of Dynotech Construction Chemicals. With over 2 decades of experience across public and private sectors, she is a recognized leader in business and industry. Let's welcome Ms. Cathy Smith.
Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies if it seems I am breaking the protocol of what Selwyn would have drafted this afternoon, but I just wanted the opportunity to introduce my ladies, and as I introduce them, they will join, and then I will seek their permission if I can accommodate them. So, thank you very much, Chairwomen. And one of them, I should let you know, and I don't think nobody here is not aware of that one of them was recently crowned a queen, right? Please, Sophia. Yeah. And then she brought the princess who was also crowned with her, right? Good to have them in this space. Honorable Madam Justice Roxanne George, our patron, thank you very much for being here this afternoon. The rose among the thorns, ladies, and I think we can agree, Mr. Selwyn Collins, yes, he has decided to come and play with the ladies who are bori. So we're happy that we're not going to bore him up too much. Thank you, Selwyn, for creating the space for us this afternoon. Fellow moderator, Mrs. Cathy Hughes. I love when I said hello, Cathy, she said hello, Cathy, yes. Leaders of the private sector, we have with us 2 of my board members from the GCCI, Dr. Aisha Wilburn at the back, right there, Aisha. We have also Mrs. Martina McDonald, how should I put it? Johnson. I don't want to put one before the other. She's very careful with that. We have Mrs. D. George and her ladies. And by the way, if you all know D business, D walk with her twin. Yes, D has a twin, right? And she walk with her twin, if you didn't know D business. And I am hoping that I don't forget anyone else in the room. I know Cathy would introduce her panelists, but just good afternoon to Cathy's panelists. I'm happy to see you here. And the men who would have came out, thank you so much for joining us. So it's truly a privilege this afternoon to moderate this final session of the Women's Forum Series 2026. Today's conversation is not only about success stories, but about the journey of transformation, resilience, leadership, innovation, and impact. We are joined by women from diverse backgrounds: law, economics, fintech, entrepreneurship, creative industry, advocacy, and manufacturing, each shaping Guyana and the wider region in their own powerful way. So today, we will explore what transformation looks like in their personal and professional journey, the barriers women still face, even though somebody said we are always talking about this women thing, if they know we are still a third of everything, how innovation and leadership are shaping the future, and what comes next for women in business, policy, creativity, and social impact. So, this afternoon, I want to go straight into introducing my panelists. And the first individual is Crystal Lam. Is Crystal here? She is here. There Crystal is. Crystal Lam represents the interests of creativity and entrepreneurship. Her work in business development and brand building speaks to the importance of innovation, adaptability, and building ventures that can evolve with changing markets. And from the time I've known Crystal, she have never been a backseat lady. She always sits at the front, George. We do encourage them to do that, right? I've never seen her sitting in the back. So please welcome Crystal Lam. Rita Dave. Rita's work over more than 3 decades in criminal justice reform and innocent advocacy has changed lives and challenged system. Even in retirement, our commitment to justice and policy reform continues. And if you need to get yourself into a room where many times us women are told that we do not belong, you can ask Rita to do that for you, right? She's good at disguising us so that we can get into spaces that we do not belong, but then when we get in there, we take over those spaces. So, welcome Rita Dave. Shade Barrow Brown is the founder of fineart.gy and has spent years using digital creativity, branding, and visible storytelling to elevate local artists and promote innovation within Guyana's creative sector. And something you should know about Shade, she wasn't raised by her biological parents, whereas she still loved them, but she had a very powerful woman in her life, which is known as her aunt, and she's so grateful that her aunt would have taken the role of motherhood for her. Please welcome Shade Barrow Brown. And we have Lisa Hussein. Lisa Hussein brings together economic, fintech, advocacy, and youth empowerment. Our work focuses on inclusive development and ensuring that economic progress reaches women, young people, and vulnerable communities. And something Lisa found out about herself recently, that she is mixed with Arawak and Warao, right? And she's excited about that, so she's now trying to learn the culture and the language. So, Lisa, welcome. And last but not least, Han Granger Gaskin. She has built Topaz into one of Guyana's most respected jewelry design and manufacturing companies. I'm even told that somebody might be wearing one of the jewelry here. Our journey spans through journalism, public relations, customer service, and entrepreneurship. And Han wants you to know that she has a son who is special need, that she loves dearly, and I want to believe sometime running her show. Ladies and gentlemen, Han Granger Gaskin. So my ladies and I would have some beautiful conversation. We hope that you enjoy the conversation. We will try our best to be on time. so that we can have some questions from the audience. And I came prepared just in case, Mrs. Hughes, the Rose decide to monetize this little business that he asked us to do next year. I'm going to get called back, right? Ladies, you're comfortable? Yes? You
Yes.
are? All right, there's water here. You can drink if you're okay. So, Crystal, I'll start with you. Perfect seat, huh? We didn't even decide on that. So, Crystal, many entrepreneurs struggle between being creative and being commercially sustainable. How have you managed to balance innovation with creativity? Because this is something a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying to get into the orange economy has been saying, you know what, there's not much for us to go after. But you have always been creative, and then you have been able to transfer that into a viable commercial sector. Let us know how you were able to balance what comes new and how are you able to execute.
So, good afternoon, everyone. So I think one of the most important things in balancing the two is being able to evolve. I feel like sometimes as creatives, we feel like you have to stay within this box where it's just about being creative. But a lot of times we need to seek out opportunities and we need to understand that yes, there's the creative aspect of it. But you need to look at your market and say, what is lacking? How can I commercialize this creativity? And I think for me, when I got into the business of fashion, it wasn't about a uniform company. I just liked fashion and I did that. But I was working in the banking sector and I realized that we were importing uniforms from Trinidad because there were nobody in Guyana doing that on a large enough scale to cater for the companies that were really large. And they needed maybe 250 but customized fits, but it's still mass production. And a decision had to be made where you say, okay, this is what I like the creative side, but getting into mass customization, it's not as fun. You don't get to work on beautiful gowns all the time. But I feel like the bottom line is you're looking for profitability. So you need to look at the market and see where the gaps are. And yes, you're creative, but find ways to commercialize that, where you can expand and you can scale the business to a point where you can make profits, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's not just about being creative. Yeah,
so it's okay to monetize your passion.
Not just monetizing your passion, because I believe we have a lot of designers as well. But it's okay to say, I want to take this to the next level. Maybe fashion is my thing, because I've gotten into several things after too. So it's important also to understand, not to box ourselves in. Not because this is what I'm known for. And I struggled with this initially because right now I'm into fuel transportation and all of that. And I struggled with the concept that, okay, but you're creative. This is your identity. So it's important to not be boxed into a space. I feel like Guyana is evolving rapidly. And there are going to be opportunities that maybe it isn't your traditional field. It's not a creative field. But we have to be adaptable. And we have to be able to evolve.
Thank you. And Rita, I think this is something that you know well, as Crystal was talking about, that we shouldn't, in other words, adapt, don't resist change. And this is something that you have worked really well. Your work shows resilience, courage, and persistent in system that can often look as if you, that can often resist change. The work that you have been doing can often resist change. So what has kept you committed to this fight for justice over the years? Because persons, I know it one way, it should remain that way. I think as women, we are told that a lot by, not just men too, but some women who are fearful of. But you have no choice in fighting for justice. You have to go against the resistance. How are you committed to that? Sorry. Yes.
I think the first thing that coming into law in 1991, I was maybe one of 2 female lawyers in a courtroom of 30, 40, or 50. So already they thought I was a secretary or a court stenographer. But to do the human rights work and to do the criminal work that I do, where I'm looking to exonerate men who have been in jail for decades for crimes they didn't commit, where I have to go back and investigate 30 years ago to show that they were not the right ones and maybe find the right individuals that committed the crime, you have to constantly remind yourself that you are in the space you are supposed to be. You have to stand up for yourself. So if, for example, I exonerated somebody and now we're in the middle of a civil litigation, my client is a young black woman who spent 9 years for a crime she didn't commit. But in that room to negotiate the settlement was myself as her lawyer. She wasn't there. Her co-defendant, also her best friend, a young black female, and her lawyer, who was a middle-aged white male, and the individual who was there from the city who wanted to negotiate and do this mediation, who was a 75-year-old American white male. And in conversation, I brought up something about the lack of evidence, and, it was actually a good point that I made. And he looked at me and he said, "Wow, you sound like a lawyer." Now, I could have buckled, gotten flustered, and I said, "Oh my goodness, but I am." And I reminded him that I wasn't my client, but I very well could be, because the biases that are prevalent and that control the narrative would make it easy for me to be in that position. And then I brought it back and I said, well, we should talk about what my client went through, and I think we should start looking at numbers. And he flustered a little, but he got right on board because I didn't let it push me back. So I think it's that resilience, the ability to stand up, to say what you have to say, and put your foot down for where you should be as an equal to whoever it is that you're dealing with, so that they will never discount what they're supposed to do in their communications with you.
Rita, tell us a little bit about how you were able to look past gender, culture, and race in your fight. Because you mentioned the middle-aged white man and you mentioned the African woman. I think there's a story behind that. How do you walk into a room and you fight, looking beyond the race, the culture, and the gender?
You can't always look beyond it. That's just life. It's what's in our environment. All of the individuals I've exonerated, except for one, have been colored. They've all done decades, and some have gone in at the age of 18. But I walk in with one premise. If you're innocent and you're not supposed to be in that jail cell, then it's my job to find out how to get you out. And that was my base premise, no matter what I did and who I dealt with. And if I needed to bring in investigators, I never looked at it on that viewpoint, but that is really what my field is. Of the 8 people I've exonerated, 1 was a middle-aged white American male. The last 2 were Jamaican and 1 was Guyanese. They're all minorities. So I don't let that control me, but when I experience it, I do fight back. When they tell me don't sit in the front row because that's just for lawyers, I'll ask them why they're presuming I'm not a lawyer. I won't say, but I am, here's my ID. I'll say, why? What made you think I wasn't? So I put it back at them so that they have to defend their ignorant positions.
I like the word, that you use that word. Thank you, Rita. Ms. Brown, what opportunities do you believe exist for creatives in Guyana that we are still not fully embracing, beyond culture, beyond economics?
So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm both very excited and humbled to be here. So, if I stumble on my responses, because I'm very humbled to be on this panel. Guyana is growing. We are seeing it in front of our eyes. We're seeing large building hotels going up every other month. And, you know, the times that we're experiencing, we need to get ahead of it. We need to get ahead of, especially in the creative sector. And so we're not going to wait for persons to come and let us know what is our identity or what should be our culture. We get ahead of it. We ensure that we use the opportunities, all the opportunities that we can have to show them our arts, to show them our artists, and so that in turn they can appreciate and have that value for it, and locals can see them having that appreciation and value for art. And so the wider country, you know, everyone could have that appreciation within them for the arts. And so, you know, my goal with fine art is to get ahead of it. We have a lot of foreigners, a lot of people here living for an extended period of time. Let them understand what our identity is. Our identity is essentially our culture, and it's structured in a certain way, very unique and specific to Guyana. And so we are supposed to sit and wait for them to, you know, give us that permission to show us how we should operate in our own country. And so the main objective is to get ahead of the game.
There's the orange economy.
Yes.
That is, everyone is talking about it, the government is talking about it, the private sector. We have an advocate for it, D. George here, former president of the tourism sector. Guyanese are saying in the arts that we don't have the technical capacity. We have the capability, but we don't have the capacity to build out what this growing economy might want. So we might need to protect the local artists at some time. Have you ever thought of any form of legislation that you think they should consider for that new economy?
So if we are informed about what the purpose of the orange economy is, it's to understand what our creatives are bringing to the table, what they are, you know, ensuring at the end of the month or the year, how much money did creatives really bring into the country. And for years and years, we haven't had or don't have that on record. Jamaica has it. Trinidad has it with their carnival. Jamaica has it with Bob Marley. And so I don't think we have a problem with how to execute. I believe soon enough there are going to be consultations, and those consultations would include exactly how that structure of the orange economy should, you know, because they're building everything from the ground up. So the structure is, they're going to have that structure to see how the best way to pull off this platform to benefit in the best way. And so I don't think there's anything lacking. We have never been short of brilliance and talent. It's always infrastructure. There's always like fragments of this, you know, skills around the country, but it's to bring it together in order to work together to ensure that this thing works. So I feel like, you know, soon enough that will be off the ground.
Thanks, Ms. Brown. So the infrastructure need to be paid attention to, right, Ms. George? Yeah. Lisa, what must we do to ensure women and young people are not left behind in this transformation? You're seeing it, you're hearing it. Women in different parts of this country are talking, having conversation. Young people are saying it's not trickling down fast enough to my section of the community. How can we ensure that women and young people are not left behind?
Thank you. Very good question. Hi, everyone. I want to say first, thank you very much to Monique. She's the reason I'm up here today. The first thing that comes to mind is just make it less frustrating. Just last week, I had a lot of things to do, various institutions and agencies, and it just frustrated me so much that I even considered, you know what, it looks good to migrate right now. So if I am thinking that way just by doing some simple tasks that I had to do, I think a lot of others are experiencing the same frustration. So making the systems less frustrating for sure, and making it more easier to understand everyone when you're implementing, or not implementing, when you're designing anything, think of the various type of beneficiaries you're designing for, and can all of them understand it? Because sometimes, a lot of times, things are designed, and because I'm at a certain level, I design it, I can understand it, but it's not for me, it's for somebody else. So less frustrating, easy designs for anyone to understand it, and more person will be encouraged to be a part and benefit from what is happening.
How would you advise them to ensure that everybody understands their system? What do you think that they should do?
So very
maybe consultation, national consultation.
Yes, more consultations, more understanding, but not make it so. Sometimes things are done in a way where it seems like it's not meant for me in my little environment or in my community. So a lot of the time is that maybe persons feel like they don't know that they belong in those rooms. So if you feel more comfortable that this is for me, then yes, you can go and understand something.
Lisa is an expert in fintech. Oh gosh, Lisa, I don't even know that, what I mean. Tell us, please.
So fintech is financial technology. So it's financial technology basically. In 2022 is when I decided to pursue fintech. At that time, I had just discovered what it was. And I was part of the team as well that, I led the team as well that created Guyana's first technology risk management guideline. So during that process of learning about that, I discovered financial technology, and Guyana was nowhere near any of that, and I was very nervous to pursue my master's in it. But I just said, when we finally get there, I may come back. I got achieving scholarship to do it in the UK. So I was like, when I come back, maybe I'll have no job, but I am hopeful that at some point we get there and I can be part of the team that leads that effort. So we at least have one person on the ground who knows what it is about. So
what might be the first thing you do, Lisa? What might be the first thing you do to ensure that you would have a job in fintech and other women and men too can have that job in fintech?
The first thing I would do?
Right, because there's not much happening in Guyana for fintech. How would you lead out if you're given the opportunity to?
Well, I've already had a few opportunities. You've mentioned my work in youth development. So every chance or opportunity I have, because the first stage of fintech basically is financial literacy. And when you tackle financial literacy, then you can actually start talking about digital financial literacy. So Girl Guides, I've had the opportunity to speak to some young ladies on basic budgeting tools, basic apps. When you start getting comfortable at that stage, that is when you can move forward. because we want to implement digital wallet, we want to implement online banking and all these tech-savvy great things that the first world is doing, and you want to just, lack of a better word, just plop it in Guyana, everybody use it. But it makes no sense to do that when you're not comfortable with it and you don't know how to do that. So the first stage is just getting everyone comfortable and aware with it. We're still lining up at banks. At an unnamed bank, I spent from 10:30 to 2 o'clock. And my actual transaction at that bank took less than 2 minutes. So if we're still at that stage and all of us are still willing to go into the bank and line up for that long, well, some is not that it's not willing, it's that the pace at which things are going. But some older population and persons who are not au fait are still very comfortable going and talking. And to some extent, that is still important. You need it, but there needs to be a balance.
Thank you, Lisa. And somebody say that your jewelry are trying to be country, right? Always look very innovative. The something you saw last year, you wouldn't see that same thing this year. It's like you're always adapting. Tell us women, how can we ensure as we go along the path of reinvention, innovation, that we don't become stuck, that we learn how to adapt in a commercially viable business where entrepreneurship is seen, grow, and develop. But us women sometimes can say we're doing it for 10 years. Like this, we're going to stay at that for that 10 years. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But you have been fixing it. It's not broken, but you have been fixing it over the year. Adaptability, and tell us about that.
It starts with paying attention. I think if you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, then you really aren't going anywhere. I think there is some, I wouldn't go so far as to say if you see something one year, you won't see it again. Because there are things that are, I guess, standard and that are favorites that we do keep producing. But you do have to keep changing because you have to move forward. And you can't move forward doing the same thing. You have to look around you and see that the world is changing. Not the world that we are in Guyana, and the wider world. Everything keeps changing. Everything keeps growing. And really, I mean, we can call ourselves creatives, but the reason we go into business is for money. We want to make money. It runs my stove and my fridge. So it's why we need to develop all the time so that we can continue to develop as a business. You have to develop your product. You have to keep changing. You have to keep looking around you. You have to keep responding to the fact that people keep wanting new things. And they don't want the new things that everyone else has necessarily. They want to see change. And part of the way you construct a relationship with your clients, with your public, with whoever's looking, they may not necessarily be buying your product, but you have to maintain an interest. And you actually have to keep proving yourself as an entrepreneur, as a manufacturer, as a designer, that you are moving forward, that you keep paying attention to new ethics, to new design ethos, to new technology, to new ways of doing things, to even old things that you may not have known about. So you actually keep looking for information. You keep looking for how different cultures or different people with different experiences, how different people do things. And I think paying attention to how different people are makes you a better business person. and you have relationships with everybody, including the people who are working with you. And it keeps your mind broad. And I think that's the nucleus of any sort of development in any sort of industry. Keep your mind broad and keep your mind moving forward and looking forward while being aware of what is behind you and what is around you.
Excellent. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the opposite. How some women are afraid to change because they're concerned that their clients won't accept. How do we prepare our clients for changes, new design, new format, new layout? How do we prepare them for that and encourage them to accept that?
You don't have to prepare them for anything. Just show and do it. Do it and show them. And they'll be, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
In my store, I have a big mirror on the wall. So I put it on them and say, go look in the mirror. Done.
Somebody said yes. Go look in the mirror.
Go look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. I think you get comfortable. And there may be a thread of fear in trying things that you are not sure about. But there's a very, very old saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And the bigger the risk, the bigger the possibilities. So you have to hold your nose and jump sometimes. You have to do it.
Go look in the mirror.
Make yourself uncomfortable.
Go look in the mirror. I'm taking that. A follow-up for you, Anne.
Yes.
This is it. Yes. Good. So you're also passionate about mentoring women entrepreneurs, I'm told, and advocating for persons with Down syndrome. How do we build businesses that are not only profitable, but also compassionate and socially responsible? Because I think that's something we are struggling with still in Guyana, in our personal space, more so in a business setting. Because when you walk into some business, I'm pretty sure when you walk with your son, you realize that that space wasn't designed for him. But still, that is an organization or a business or an entrepreneur that is saying to you, you have to come and buy. But the space is not taking into account individuals like your son and so many that we have living in Guyana. So how do we build businesses that are not only profitable, but also compassionate and socially responsible?
I think you have to start with the society and with people. In a lot of the work that a friend and I have a foundation called Extra One, GY, because Down syndrome is actually created, for want of a better word, when a child is born with an extra gene attached to the 21st pairing. It's called trisomy 21. So Extra One is that Extra One gene. So we spend a lot of time talking to people. And in the past, which is kind of how we grew up, a lot of times people are born with various disabilities, with Down syndrome being one of them, and you just don't see them. They're kept home. People have children who the neighbors have not seen. We know someone whose son is 42 years old, and the neighbors aren't sure what he looks like. So it really starts with you, because you're trying to protect your child. You don't want nobody laugh at your child, and you keep him where you can care for him. Now, the scary thing is most Down syndrome children are born to parents over 40. So if that boy is 40, how old is his mother? What happens when she is not there? So we have to take that forward. I think the key to acceptance is exposure. A lot of people don't know how to deal with someone who has special needs because they don't encounter them. They don't see them. So the world is changing, that we are so much more aware of everything. Everyone is sharing on social media. So people know you have a child with special needs. So when you take him to the supermarket, people know. And I think too there's an awareness that it's no longer acceptable to laugh at someone who is not what you are. And I have found, just from taking him out everywhere, that yes, you have to be aware that not everyone is comfortable with him running up and hugging people left, right, and center. But a lot of people are actually quite welcoming. And I have found a lot of Guyanese, because it's the way I think at heart Guyanese are a very generous, open-hearted people. And a lot of people tend to react to him in a very generous, open-hearted way. So I cannot say that it has been difficult like that. But you do have to be aware that you just kind of have to keep an eye on him all the time. When it comes to now building businesses, I think businesses do what is profitable. Their eye is to their profit. And if it is profitable for them to be more accepting, if it is profitable for a business to construct an identity that they are aware and embracing, then it will work. They will do it. And it has to be driven by social demand, by social acceptance, by how we structure what we want in our society. So I think it's a chicken and egg thing, where anything that is profitable will be the direction the business wants to go in. So the consumer has to sometimes call the shots and demand certain levels of service. And if we weren't doing that, then businesses would not adapt or change.
Excellent. And I should let you know I got the deepest soul smile from you with the last question, right? So I know your passion is there. Crystal, I want to give you a follow-up question because I know Selwyn probably might be saying time, right?
It's fine.
Your industry is always evolving, right? It's changing every day. The fashion, the style. How do you advise young women to build brand and evolve in such an industry and to stay relevant in such an industry? Because tomorrow you get up, something new on the market, you know, how can they sustain themselves while evolving and staying relevant?
So I think first of all, you need to understand what your niche is, what your identity is. Understand that in business, your target audience or your target market will never be everybody. So you can't please everybody. And fashion is something that is evolving, like you rightfully said, it's daily. You wake up and there's a new trend tomorrow, there's a new trend the next day. So you have to understand what your identity is and still stay on top of what is happening and understand what your client needs. And you just go out there. You can't fly with every new trend they have. You're not going to be sustainable because you're going to be all over the place. So understand who you are, understand who your target audience is, and you cater to them. Of course, you have to be innovative. Like I said before, you have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to evolve as time goes by. But in doing that, just understand your identity, who you are, who your target audience are. I think that's...
Something you want to tell us about the creative side that maybe we need to be educated about? Anything that you feel that you need to, yes, that you need to let us know.
Okay, so I'm a graphic designer first. When it comes to making money and making ends meet, I'm a graphic designer. And a lot of times I have to interact with so many people. I think I'm most tolerable. My tolerance level is very high. I would interact with so many different characters, so many different, I'll be taking on so many different demands, so many different egos, so many different miracles. People usually want miracles, and I feel like I am most tolerable as a creative. A lot of creatives like to tell you, you know, this is our history, this is our identity, this is our culture, this is the way we should be. But when I'm interacting and I'm doing graphics for people, and I've been doing this for 20 years almost, and I've learned and I've come to be very tolerable. I've learned to understand that everybody is different and everybody would have or want different outcomes. And so, you know, with a little recommendation or suggestion from me goes hand in hand sometimes. But the general idea for me is to not so much accept, but tolerate that, you know, these people, everybody different. Everyone is different. And so I'm accepting of that as a creative.
Rita, what are you working on right now? You got to get a mic.
I thought I was semi-retired, but I'm putting together a organization that will help wrongfully incarcerated women. And part of that is going in tandem with working on some film and media. Podcast is just the audios, but we want to do small stints that are like similar to podcasts, where we're going to showcase a particular case and hopefully use that as a means to investigate, highlight the individual situation, and you know, hopefully get them exonerated. But for now, it's going to be just a women-based organization. And part of the extension of that will be their families, to allow for their children to have a place to go, a way to speak, to get information, to get guidance, because you do have families that are torn apart, and a lot of them are single moms. So that's the overview at this point.
Excellent. Lisa, in another 5 years, what would Lisa be doing?
Migrating. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. In another 5 years,
she is in fintech, so she's up to time with the news.
Honestly, it's sort of a difficult question. When I was younger, I used to always think about what next, or when I was younger. I am very I from a very young age I was thinking like an adult. And I think at this point, I've gotten to the stage where I'm in the present, and I'm not really thinking about what next to achieve, or what next to build, or what next to do. And sometimes I think that's very important, especially in our movement. When I say our, I mean women consistently working towards getting their voices heard, getting in the door. It's always something to be on for. And I don't know if I'm just tired, which sounds very weird because I look very young, but being in the present is useful, because what I've discovered in doing that is I'm not as anxious and as worried about next 5 years me. I'm focused on living in the now and being kind, working on that in the moment, and without even realizing it or putting effort into it, the tomorrow Lisa is taken care of. And then the tomorrow Lisa does present stuff, and the next day Lisa is taken care of. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you're like an old soul over there. So wrapping up, Lisa, tell me that one woman that you admire.
It would definitely be my mom. It was just me and my mom, teenage, by herself. I'm still amazed that at the age of 18, she was like, yes, I'm going to keep this baby. And I always grew up thinking that, you know, your life could have been so much easier without me. And it was kind of a hush thing that we never really spoke about, because at the time when she got me, it was very taboo for a young girl, unmarried, to get a child. So the two of us were the black sheep of the family. And she was basically put out, nothing. And to think back, because I'm now 31 and no child, and thinking at 18, she decided to have a child with nothing, no education, no job prospects, no family, no support. It's amazing that she did what she did to have me where I am today. So I will always say her because I don't know how she did it. I don't even know how I'm here, but I know it's because of her prayers and just her thinking of me, of doing better.
Shadi, who's that one woman that you admire?
It would definitely be that aunt you spoke about. My aunt took me in when my parents separated, and she took me in when she has 3 children and a husband, but I guess she understood then what her, responsibility to me was on behalf of her brother then. But she has been very, very instrumental in everything that I have accomplished so far. Her children as well, the way that she nourished everyone in her family, and she is the same way with strangers. I grew up with a woman that picked up strangers back then, picked up strangers at the head of the road coming out of Mocha Arcadia just to get out to get to school or to work. She would pick up total strangers and we'd be chucking up in the bus. Everybody needed to get out to that road, and she's that person that you would wait. Miss Marie coming out, we can get a drop with her. And then they would say, here's the money. No money. This is the type of woman I grew up with. I believe that a lot could be said about her. I wouldn't bore you, but she has definitely made sure, along with the rest of my family, especially the women too, that I was not left behind. Yeah.
Well, Crystal, you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I know you asked for one, but I'm gonna push it and I'm gonna give 2. So of course, my mother is somebody that I admire deeply as well. We started from very humble beginnings, not much resources, but her strength and the way she always made things work. I think that has taught me a lot of resourcefulness because I feel like that's one of my strengths. I can get things done regardless of the situation. And my clients usually call me when they want things done. It might be on a short notice, but if we need this in 1 week and nobody else can do it, let's reach out to Crystal. And I think that's one of the strengths, one of the things that I would have learned from her, resourcefulness. Because we didn't grow up with much, but she always found a way to make things work. And I admire that. And it's a part of who I am. I think on the other side, for business purposes, I would say Rihanna is somebody I admire, not as an artist necessarily, but I feel like I admire the way she has a talent, she has a skill, that is where she started. But she found a way to monetize that. And she monetized it in such a way where she doesn't depend on it anymore. She can be creative, she can sing if she wants to, but she monetized that skill and she got into other things. And I feel like in business, that's where I want to be. Yes, I started as a designer, but that's not necessarily where I need to stay. I feel like you have to be able to adapt. You can get into other things. You don't have to be boxed into a box and say, this is who I am and I'm going to do this until I die.
Most definitely my mother. She is a trailblazer. Being a young girl in India in a village with a large family, she's not allowed to go to school. Her father was a doctor, but she had to do household chores for her 8 siblings and the extended family. My mom made sure she went to school. She made sure she fought against the system. And it was her goal in life to be able to leave India and bring me to America so that I would not have to live by certain requirements of our society. And she did it. She made my father apply and leave and move at great odds and with poverty. And barely making it through. But she raised me, she raised my two sisters, and she was strong. And I think it was that strength and resilience and navigating it in a way that wasn't a fight, but you sure as heck knew that she had something to say and do. And so my mom.
My turn. It's hard to get through this without saying your mother. And mine's fairly fierce. I mean, I've watched her she's always doing something. I watched her, when I was little and she was a stay-at-home mother, she went from one degree to another. She literally worked her way through 3 degrees. And she is always, always pushing. And I think that's the example. I think that's what we grew up assuming that one does. And my whole family, I think I grew up surrounded by women who taught me different things. They're all fierce in their own ways, and we grew up with this work ethic that everything you have, you will work for it. And if you work for something and you get it, you will work for something else. And you just grow up thinking, you just keep work, you don't take nothing from nobody. You work, you fight. And that's my mother, my grandmothers, my aunts. That was my universe. It was full of women who taught me how to fight. And you could fight quiet, right? And look at the end result you want, and don't stop until you get it.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, my panelists. Quite authentic. I did not share not a question with none of them. I guess some of you saw when I came in, I was trying to figure out who is who and who is where, because I really wanted this conversation to be impactful. I wanted them to think what they were about to say. I want them to make mistakes, and that was okay. I want them to be nervous, and that was okay too. And if we realize, we saw Lisa came into herself, right? Because when she started, she was a bit close in, and then she came into this herself, and we realized that there's an old soul living in there, right? So you're gonna ask my ladies some questions, but don't rough the brains up a little bit, you know. Just ask some questions. We gotta wrap it up. Okay, Selwyn said we have to wrap it up. But these are ladies you can meet at any time. I'm so sorry I went beyond. Selwyn know I'm a teacher, so he know I like talk, right? So good for him. But ladies, just in case you might see me leave, I mentioned to our Rose that I have to go. I was invited to another event, right? So please, it has nothing to do with you, Kathy, or our beautiful ladies at the back there. But I did mention that to Selwyn. So thank you very much, audience. You've been great.
Welcome back to Brand Youth's Women's Forum Series 2026, our 4th and final series. Our theme is from transformation to impact, shaping what comes next. We will have our second panel. The second panel's theme will be breaking barriers, building pathways, women shaping systems and institutions. For our second panel, our moderator will be Kathy Hughes, and the panelists will be Dr. Lisa Edwards, Deborah Francis, Rosalinda Russell, Honorable Coretta MacDonald, and Unika Jarvis. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator, Ms. Catherine Hughes. Seems like the Cathy are winning today. We have 2 Cathys. Yeah. Kathy Hughes is a distinguished media specialist with extensive experience across television, radio, journalism, and advertising throughout the Caribbean and internationally. Her career has included work with CNN Headline News Local Edition in Texas, the BBC in Liverpool, and news reporting roles in both Jamaica and Guyana. She is the founder of Video Mega Productions an award-winning media production and advertising company, and is also widely recognized for her contributions to public service and national development. Catherine served as Guyana's Minister of Tourism in 2015 and became the country's first Minister of Public Telecommunications in 2016. A former Member of Parliament and long-standing advocate for social progress and women's empowerment, she continues to play an influential role in Guyana's development landscape. Please welcome Ms. Cathy Wu.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I really want to start off by congratulating the last panel, because that was an excellent discussion, excellent discussion. The next thing I want to do, of course, is to congratulate my friend of, I can't say how many decades, but I think it's more than about 5 decades, Selwyn Collins. Thank you, Selwyn, for all the work that you do. And most importantly, we had a fantastic, dynamic panel last time, and I am so honored to have also very well educated, very well informed. I think we're going to have a wonderful discussion. So I want to compliment my panelists, and I want to briefly tell you a bit about each of them. And since we have a plan and a tradition now, as I do the little introduction, please, I'm going to ask you to take your seat at the table, on stage. Okay, so first of all, Dr. Lisa Edwards. Dr. Lisa Edwards is a lecturer and researcher at the University of Gender Studies, right here at the University of Guyana. Her multidisciplinary background spans communication, gender and development, and education. Her research interests include gender, media and suicide, masculinities, sexual violence, and education. Excellent. Thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us today. Next panelist is someone I know very well. I'm happy to name Deborah Francis. Many of you, I have to tell you, if you go listen to 104 in the afternoon, you hear Deborah. So Deborah is a communications specialist with more than 20 years of experience in broadcast media, public relations, marketing, corporate communications, including several years in predominantly male-dominated spaces. A familiar voice on Guyanese radio, she currently freelances as a radio announcer and producer across multiple stations. Through both her professional and personal journey, she continues to inspire conversations around growth, resilience, learning, unlearning, and professional transformation. That's Deborah. Our next panelist, Rosalinda Rasul, and I've had the pleasure of meeting her on one occasion before. So Rosalinda is a media and communications professional with experience in journalism, broadcasting, and public engagement. Through her work in storytelling and public discourse, she has consistently explored the role of media in shaping. Is that the wrong one? Oh, they have this for your name. Selwyn, who's that? Huh? Okay. Sorry, Rosalinda. Well, I know her because I was going to add that I know her in foreign affairs, and I wondered how come it wasn't here. And she was very instrumental in taking our diaspora unit to a totally different level. Is that correct? All right. You see, this is what we're talking about. You got to be able to just respond, right? So I don't know who that was supposed to be. And that is Selwyn fault. Okay, Coretta MacDonald, my colleague in Parliament before, so I know this is Coretta. Member of Parliament currently, President of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, and General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. With more than 34 years in education, she's a graduate head teacher and holds postgraduate qualifications in business administration, education management leadership, a passionate advocate for rights. Any of you that know her know that is so. And equality and the development of children. She's widely respected for her leadership, conviction, and service. And Onika. There she is. Hi, Onika. I'm not sure if we met before. Nice to meet you again. Good. And Onika, is a communications and engagement professional whose work focuses on public narrative. That's right. Onika, do me a favor, darling. Come and tell us in 1 second about yourself. That's what the description they gave me. Are you?
So we're doing wellness, getting Guyana healthy, fit, Strive 592, we're walking. So here we're talking about self-care for women and families and the whole of Guyana.
Wonderful.
All right.
Very, very important. And Rosalinda, can I ask you just to say briefly a bit about yourself since we didn't have the right bio?
Thank you so much, and that's okay. No issue there whatsoever. I totally enjoy that, actually. Thank you so much, but I think you pretty much hit it on the head. My current portfolio is head of the diaspora unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, but I'm actually from the private sector. That's my entire career has been in private businesses, spanning several disciplines, and I currently also chair the Transport and Harbors Department. So it's I'm pretty much very much business oriented for the moment.
Okay, so I know we have less time. Oh, I didn't see that mic. Okay, here we go. So I know we have less time, but I still think that we can have a very engaging discussion, and we're going to be very, very to the point. I've taken the liberty of changing how we start off, just because we've got less time. So I wanted, first of all, to start by reminding you our theme is breaking barriers, building pathways, women shaping systems and institutions. And I want to interpret that as what can Guyanese women do to shape systems and institutions? And I thought really that Selwyn, in part of his messaging about this course of debate, really put it in a nutshell. And I want to quote him. This final gathering brings us to a shared space where conversation meets presence and ideas meets action. This is not simply about what we've learned, but about what we are now prepared to build. That's from Selwyn. So we want to have a discussion on what we need to do. What we need to do to look at building the pathways, breaking the barriers, and we're looking at institutions and systems. And I'm so happy that we have a panel that have covered such a wide area. So I want to throw that out to each of you and give you maybe 3 minutes to just share your thoughts. And of course, from your specific personal experience, your recommendations. The audience and anyone listening to this must walk away with the sense of what can I do in my own space to build these institutions, to shape and change and improve systems in Guyana. Okay? Making sense? Great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, and good afternoon. So I'm sitting here smiling, thinking to myself, systems, institutions, innovate. And from where I sit, I want to say that for us as women, the work that we are doing, the work that we have been doing, it's been a lot. And we know that folks in here, we've got the entrepreneurs, we've got the professional women, we've got the moms. And usually, culturally, that's a lot on us. We bear a lot, we hold a lot, we're holding the stories. And so for me, I want to be able to say that the system is us, the institution is us, our bodies, our minds. And it is time that we pause and say us first, our health first, our minds first, our bodies first. And so, the organization that I have my heart and soul in, that folks know, the work that I'm doing, Strive 592, it's walk, run, move. And we are here on a mission to get Guyana healthy. And so I want to say, as all of this development is happening, that if someone does not pause and say, we have to get healthy, we have to be well, the development doesn't matter. Because we can't enjoy it. We're not mentally prepared to enjoy it. And we know right now mental health, right? The numbers are really high. We're not doing well. But as women, we can start that. We have that power, that strength to do it. I want to say, one step at a time, one walk at a time. But also, to the other thing that I want to say is, and usually when people come to our walks, when the community comes to our walks and our runs, we want to say, pause for a minute and think about the 5 people that you love the most, that needs to be here, taking 30 minutes to walk, to run, to lay on a mat, right? Just to begin a practice of self-care. So that's what I want to leave. I know we're not, pressed for time, but that's what I want to leave with you. That you are the system. You are that innovation. If we're not sleeping, if it is that we're not well enough to think to innovate, it's not going to happen. So I want to just say to you, pause, find whatever that self-care practice is that you can begin with yourself, and then think of the 5 people that you love to share it and demand that they do it. So that's what I think.
I think that that's a very important point, because it's a point that we quite often forget to mention. And it is the foundation of us as women being able to help and work with our families, in our businesses, in our communities. So health and wellness, and giving ourselves the privilege of understanding that you deserve the time. Make that 30 minutes to look after yourself. Thank you, Anika. Coretta, we're talking about shaping institutions. And you continue to play a very dynamic role in 2 institutions that are traditionally male-dominated. And of course, that's a union and of course, parliament. So give us an idea of what does it take? What would you advise women to do to be able to actually influence institutions like those in Guyana?
Thank you, Kathy, and good afternoon, everyone. I am very humbled to be here. If you look at what's happening with me, but I have decided that this is not going to hold me back, because this is the kind of person I am. I'm always out there. I want to start off by saying, like Kathy just mentioned, let me say, first of all, I try to look at the theme and to dissect it and put down a couple of pieces, a couple of things down, because I can talk from now until tomorrow morning. I usually tell folks I get paid to talk because I'm a teacher by profession. However, what can we as women do to change society, to change the way things happen, and to build each other? First of all, we've got to start from the home. from the home. That's where we start. As mothers, we have to start nurturing our girl children. We have to start telling them that they are beautiful and allowing them to feel beautiful, allowing them to be themselves. And that's the first step in breaking barriers. Because when you are confident about yourself as a woman, then there's nothing stopping you. And then we have to look at the stereotyping. We have got to start breaking those stereotypes. A young girl goes out there and she gets pregnant and everybody looks down on her. And then you know, and all the black strokes you start marking around her. We've got to start breaking those stereotypes. She's not married, she's young, and she's pregnant, and the talks, you know the talks. We've got to start breaking the stereotypes about women not being in certain positions. Oh, the place of a woman should be at home. As a woman, you shouldn't wear this, you shouldn't wear that, you shouldn't do that. We have to start breaking those stereotypes. And then as women, we'll be able to evolve. Thirdly, as women, we have got to start being aggressive in a nice way and not so nice way. You know what I mean? We've got to be assertive. We must be confident about who we are, so that when we step out there, what society will see is not Coretta MacDonald, but they're going to see an individual going out there who can make a difference in the life of one person, two person, or three person, or the impact that Coretta MacDonald can make out there. And a little girl would be out there saying, I want to be like Coretta MacDonald. I want to be like Kathy. I want to be like somebody else. And then we have to start going out there in order to break the barriers. We have got to be able, as women, to stand tall, to be humble. Anybody hearing me? To be humble. To walk with our integrity. I had a professor who said to me, you have to walk like you pay school fees. So as women, we've got to walk with our dignity. We've got to walk out there and let persons know that I am not going to be taking what you say I must take. And you will not tell me that I must shut up. In short, we have to start being those men in skirts. Hello? Hello? We have to start being men in skirts. And then finally, I want to say, in order for us to be able to break the barriers and break ceilings, we as women will have to start learning to fix each other's crown as women. As women. You know, many times we see our sisters going astray and we allow them to go out there and fall. Rather than hugging and embracing and giving a word of encouragement, in order to break barriers and to break ceiling, we've got to start doing those things. And like you said, Kathy, I've evolved from two institutions. GTU is 143 years old this year, and I am the third woman president in 143 years. At the Guyana Trades Union Congress, I'm the second woman president, and I'm not sure when we're going to have another woman president. And so for us as women, we have moved on academically. We do things that men do. We are doing jobs that once were dominated by men. And so we have so many other women that we can look up to. And that in itself will help us to be able to break the barriers, break ceilings, and help us to empower other women who are coming after us.
Excellent, excellent. And your point, I think, just to add on to what you said, the power women have to raise the next generation differently is a major power that we have to remember we have quietly in our hands. And it means that for our girl children, we need to be giving them confidence, as Coretta mentioned. And then, of course, for our boys, making them understand from an early age and building the respect that they have for women. So that's a very important role. Now, Deborah, I know that in addition to your communication skills, many years ago, and I think you still have today, heavy involvement in health education. So give us an idea of what should women to be able to shape this agenda. We don't want to just turn up, but what else do we need to do to influence and to ensure we can bring change to this discussion?
So good afternoon again, and thank you, Selwyn, for the invitation to be here. Absolutely, women, first of all, we have to stand in our truth. This issue of self-awareness sometimes could be, I beg your pardon, self-awareness could be one of those topics where we just see as an academic topic, but it's something that we need to stand in. We need to know who we are, what skills we bring. Define yourself before the world defines who you are. That's important. When you have defined yourself, you can then be confident about stepping into the spaces that you need to step into. And even though it may seem intimidating, the fact is you know who you are, you know the skills you bring, you know your competence, you can confidently do or execute whatever it is that you need to execute. But I think in terms of challenging systems, it's important that we ourselves accept that the world is evolving. The woman who was in 1980 placed in the workforce, or the woman who came up in the 1980s, even in the 1990s, was a different woman compared to the woman who we are now. That woman most likely would have been a stay-at-home mom. That woman most likely would have been someone who had multiple children. That woman was a woman perhaps who was dependent on a man in most instances. But in our instance, we are independent economically, financially. We have our learning would have evolved. The way in which we see ourselves would have evolved. And as a result of that, it's so important that we now stand in that truth and then be able to represent that cause. So one of the challenges that we have is the balancing act. How do we balance being a career woman with that of being a mother? We are or being a caregiver. We are forced in many instances to normalize burnout because we're women. Just because we're women. We have so many roles to play, and as a result of that, we're expected to be perfect in all of those roles. And as a result of that, too, oftentimes we're the ones who suffer. So as my team member would have mentioned, we have to see who we are. We have to stand in our truth, be able to assess where we are in the world, whether we are able to manage multiple roles. What can we manage realistically? How well can we perform each task? Do we need assistance? These are some critical areas we need to ask ourselves and challenge as well. So if you are placed in a work environment where the demands are, or it has become normal to work until 10 o'clock at night, it is not practical in your world because you know your demands, you know what is required of you. And as a result of that, how do you now stand in your truth to say, I am willing to perform the tasks that are given to me, and I can confidently do this, competently execute, but these are the realities. And as a result of that, I would like to either be able to leave instead of 10 o'clock. I have to go pick up my child at 4 o'clock. Can I be given 2 hours to get my child settled and then perhaps work from home and execute what I need to execute based on the timeline again? So these are all realities that we have, but the important thing is for us to know who we are, know our truth, stand in the truth, and then question. Don't be afraid to challenge the norms that are given to us, well, the norms that are presented as normal. But just be able to question and challenge them and be able to execute.
Yeah, really, really good points again. And this is where education, this is where issues like raising real concerns, having the strength to be bold in some big companies and say, you know, as a woman, as a company, you need to consider childcare facilities. Those are the new and innovative ideas that we still haven't reached in most businesses. And we're not going to get there unless we start throwing these ideas out, you know? So that's very, very important. Rosalinda, please give us some of your thoughts on how we shape institutions. And I know you have the advantage of working in a diaspora environment, internationally, Guyanese that are internationally located. So what are some of the tips? What do women have to do to be able to succeed in your world?
Thank you very much for that. First of all, I want to say I'm really happy that you've contextualized the broader topic into a Guyanese environment. And that is very important because oftentimes when we speak on topics, we tend to speak very generically and then we take from all over and we try to pass it off as if it's something important, but we tend to miss the context and the environment of Guyana. And I think that's where we need to focus a lot of these discussions. So I'm grateful that you've brought that down to the Guyanese context. And one of the things, I'm listening to all the speakers and the speakers before me, and I think they all have very valid points, but there are three things I would say that the woman in Guyana needs to bear in mind if they're going to not just break barriers, but also shape institutions, create pathways, and then also to overcome some of the challenges and create an environment that's empowering for women across all disciplines and all categories. If you look historically at where women were and where they are today, as Deborah said, it's too vast, it's very vast, it's different. The woman of many years back is not the same woman today. But when you look the women today, we have so many benefits. And it's because of the woman of yesteryear. Now, the woman of yesteryear did not have an education. She did not have a degree. She didn't have a diploma, master's, PhD. She didn't have any sort of freedom. She had no rights. She had no liberty. She was owned. She was a piece of property, particularly owned by her husband, goes way, way back in time. So even if she married, she couldn't sign documents. She couldn't own any property. She couldn't create her own will, nothing of the sort. But when you look where we are today, we have all these fantastic benefits. We can get our education, we can go as high as we want, we call the shots in boardrooms, basically. But all of this came as a result of those women who did not have what we have. So this is why I'm framing my response in this way. If we're going to, break there are some ceilings still to be broken, and we need to shape institutions, we need to create the pathway. There is now a different challenge for the woman of today, now endowed with all of the benefits the woman of yesteryear would have done. And so we need to build on that. That's the first thing we need to do. We know what the woman previously did, where we are today as a result of her, what she's fought for. I was particularly interested in how the women in the war, like World War I and World War II, carried themselves because they had no liberties at that point in time and they weren't legally, socially, and economically empowered. But when the men went to war, they had to take over. And they started to do a lot of things and they fought for their rights. When women started to get into the different categories, basically, I love the fact that many were trailblazers, whether they were different ethnic group, whether they were different discipline, whether they were different nationality, they blazed that trail so that women who were coming up would be able to enjoy the benefits, whether it's in academia or whether it's an award or something of the sort. So whether it was in like Rosa Parks and what you stand for civil rights, whether it's Marie Curie, whether it's in physics or chemistry, these are women who set the stage and the tone for other women to come. Now, we come to a country like Guyana, we've come a far way in terms of women's rights and what we have as a people. However, there's still a lot to be done, and everybody acknowledges that. There's a lot to be done. But there are three things I think we as women still need to realize when it comes to how to, again, break those students that are still there, create the pathways, shape institutions, basically. Three things I would like to encourage the women who's listening, and whether they're educated or they're not educated. One, understand the times. The reason why I would ask women to understand the times, it's not because we say, you know what, if for you to empower yourself, you must have an education. Education is important. Now, it is very important for a woman to have an education if you want to take the opportunities. But maybe 100 years ago, she did not have that education, but she was able to set the pathway for a lot of other women to get that education. So this is why it's important to understand the times, as opposed for us to tell women, you know what, You need to get married at a certain age. You need to have this career. You need to be educated. You must understand the time, and that time it is going to guide her. What is it she needs to do? What she needs to embody in order to navigate the times and the chances. That's the first thing. The second thing is confidence, and I've heard that come out in all the other panelists as well. Confidence. Women are no less, or they're not inferior to men in academics, in their intelligence, in fact, I think, and this is not being biased in any way against gender, but it's a biological thing. Women understands differently, and I think there are more advantages to the woman. Basically, one, she understands emotions, so her emotional intelligence tends to be very different. So when you're dealing or you're looking at people in a company, for example, or a social group, she understands feelings and emotions and can relate and set policies, or she can set directives or deal with benefits that now caters for all the people because she understands, she feels that. Men may not be able to understand that. So that's the second thing, basically. So that, and although they have that, yet you find that women are not confident in putting themselves forward, although they're equally, or in some cases, even more, or even superior to some of their male colleagues. And that's what we need to encourage them to understand. Be confident. Understand the time, be confident. And secondly, determination. Nothing is going to be handed to a woman on a silver platter. It didn't happen historically. It's, there's a lot of changes now, but there's still some instances where you literally have to, go it through that door and be confident in asking what you want. That's the way you're going to shape policies and directions. So, for example, and I love the fact that you referenced earlier about some of the changes and some things are not ready. If you look in marine, for example, the ships that are built, the ships, and a lot of people didn't know that, the ships are not built for a woman's captain. Because the way the amenities are, it's more suited for a man, because a man tends to navigate vessels across the international waters. So if you were a woman captain, then are there certain things that a woman would need to go through a long journey? It's not on that vessel if you were a captain. So now that people understand these things, they're starting to change the way you set the policies, the infrastructure, and everything. Take into consideration women. But of course, you have to be determined, because you knock the first time, the door may not open. You have to keep knocking and keep knocking for it to happen. But so you have to be determined. So those are the three things I'm going to leave there. Understand the times, be confident, and be determined.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Lisa, over to you now. Let me hear your input on this conversation. What advice can you give to Guyanese women in whatever area of work engagement? Because that's the other thing. Here we're not talking just about traditional workspaces. Many women are involved in their church community, their community in terms of where they live. There's several facets, but we still want to give them a few points or your take on what can help them to really raise their voice, so to speak.
Thank you very much. Very insightful thoughts shared so far. What I would like to add is for us to recognize that women have already been putting in that work. I mean, this is not something of today. It started from how we came here into this space and into the region. We were the backbone in terms of how the region has approached its development, and really to recognize women's work in that way. Secondly, I would say to encourage women who are at a leadership or in certain capacity to continue to rock the boat, right? To continue to break some of those harmful practices within your workspaces or within your churches, to continue to speak out. And I think the other thing is for women to be very intentional and conscious of the type of community that they are building around them that is also inclusive of other women and even men, young men as well, and being able to mentor them to better address some of these issues. Because this work, we can't just do it for today, is also thinking of what will it look like ahead in the future, the impact of future generations. So that's my very brief thing I would want to say to that question.
Good. Very, very good points. Very good points. Oh, I'm getting a signal time, right? Okay. Well, let me ask my very distinguished panel. Is there any area that we're missing, any closing comments that you want to make? I certainly want to reiterate what Lisa said, and that is that this hasn't arrived now. Women in Guyana have been doing amazing things, and as Rosalinda has reminded us, many of them going back decades with much less resources than we have today. And therefore, I think the onus is on us as women to mentor other women and to make sure that we keep passing that baton on. It's almost as if every generation has to make sure that we're taking the whole struggle one step further. So any quick closing remarks from any of my panelists?
All right. So if I may just go first.
Sure,
And then
please, go ahead.
I just want to leave closing remarks related to two categories of women. The first would be the woman that's more in a corporate setting, not necessarily business, but whether it's in medical, it's in parliament, it's in the school system, it's in charity, NGO, whatever it is there. And when you look at this theme that Selwyn had crafted for this women's series, it moved from participation to influence. And that is critical to, like you talk about breaking the barrier, shaping systems and institutions. Women now who are accomplished and in these positions that you can make that difference now need to move from participating, which means to have a seat at the table, to now influencing what happens at that table. So you don't just want numbers. You know, there are 5 women here, and we could all be 5 women numerically, but none of us really made a difference in what we're doing. So now you're moving from just being a participant at the table to influencing what happens, what's the outcome, what happens to society, and that's very important for the women who are in the positions to do that. The second one that I'm going to leave with now, it relates to the women who may not be in that position, but it's a formal setting. And I like the fact that you refer to churches, the communities. I am starting to think about my own community where I was born. There are women, they're the baby boomers. These are the ones who may not historically have the education, but they've done a lot for their families, for their children. They've given their children the opportunities and privileges they never had. But now that, you know, the bird has flown the coop, the nest, these women are there. And I've seen so many of them, and I've interacted with so many, I'm thinking, you know, it shouldn't be this way for them because they've done quite a lot for a lot of people, not just women, but their sons, and they're breeding new generations that are doing amazing things, but that generation is moving on, but they're still there, forgotten. And so I am trying to come up with some programs that can make these women feel that, like you said, they're beautiful, they're confident, you can still contribute and make a difference to your community. So those are the two categories I will end with in terms of what we still need to do in our society.
Excellent, thank you. Coretta, you have
Yes, let me say, what I would want to leave with us as women, one, know exactly what you want. As long as you know what you want, whether the waves rage high or the challenges come, whether they come in the form of hardship, suppression, or whatever it is, determination will take you to where you have to go. So you first know what you want, know how you want to get there. And then secondly, I want to say to us that as women, we have to, and even as men, as girls and as boys, we have to let them understand that you're in competition with no one but yourself. We're in competition with no one but yourself. So every day you're competing to make you, me, I, a better person. And that's what I want to leave with us. When we look at what is happening in our society, and I should say 3 things. Unity amongst women. As women, we've got to be a little more united and fight for the cause of every woman. Whatever affects Kathy should affect me, should affect another woman there, should affect another woman there. And we should stop being silent on things that matter. Very often in our work environments, and Kathy, you would know that when we sat in Parliament, lots of things happen to us as women in Parliament, and then we have women there who are cheering on and women who can't say anything. So as women, we need to speak out when things or issues are affecting other women. And it can lead to so many things, but I just want to leave that with us. One, to ensure that we know where we want to go, we know who we are, and how we want to get to where we want to go, and that you're in no competition with anyone, and that we should be speaking when we are supposed to speak. And not sit there, I'm the CEO, but that's all behind it, like my colleague just said. If you're there, especially if you're a woman in position, then you need to be able to demonstrate that by your very action.
Thank you, Nika.
And I just had something really quickly. And as we're here celebrating our Diamond Jubilee anniversary, I would love to see that we begin to document the women who has been before us. And, you know, for Women's History Month, I remember, you know, I was trying to look up to see who were some of the Guyanese women. I don't want to hear Rosa Parks. I don't want to hear Coretta Scott King. Who were they? I was actually quite surprised, you know. And I'm like, can we do something like that? Can we begin to teach our young students and and for some of us adults, right? I want to see those faces. You know, we're seeing the men. You come in at the airport, they're there. You know, rightly so, they're there. But where do we go to find the women? And so maybe a lesson for, you know, some of our school kids or some historians. But I think I would love to see that in a real practical way, that we begin to document the history of the women.
Onika, I'm glad that I can say that we have started that process. The Women and Gender Commission actually has an exhibition that is fairly comprehensive. Unfortunately, it's only out for International Women's Days when they tend to do it. But you're absolutely correct that we can take that same information and have it in some kind of format that more people, more women and men and Guyanese are aware of it. But certainly if there's anyone in the room or anyone that's listening, I think the Women and Gender Commission's website is a good place to start.
Kathy, if I can just say one thing. Allow me, please, Kathy, to recommend to our director, if I can call him that the next time we have a forum like this, we should see Guyanese women being posted, you know, and a little write-up on them. Mr. Selwyn Williams, we'd be happy to have that the next time.
So in closing, sorry.
Go ahead,
so in
Deborah.
closing, I just would like to reiterate the point that we should really not be afraid to stand in our truth. I think a lot of us are guilty of having the world tell us what we can, what we can't do. So not be afraid to just stand in your truth, acknowledge who you are, acknowledge your strength. Don't let the workplace, don't let corporate demands tell you you can't or you shouldn't. Don't be afraid to evolve. This world demands of us to evolve. Never be afraid to evolve, because after having a child, after leaving my former job, I seriously, intentionally thought about what I'd like to do and how I can balance my time between my child and what I'd like to do. And I think so many women that I've come across struggle with that. We struggle daily. How do we now go to work for 8 hours, come home and deal with this other human being or human beings? You know, we struggle with those things. So don't be silent about it. Give voice to it, because there are other women who are experiencing those same challenges, and they may be able to realistically help you along the way. So just stand in your truth. Don't be afraid to share, and other women will come around you and rally and support you. That's number one. Number two, don't be afraid to challenge some of the norms that we have. In our world, again, in the corporate world, sometimes women, they say women are your greatest enemies. Women could be the enemy of another woman. again, just remind that woman who sometimes is also struggling with finding her own space in that, whatever space it is, that listen, you're not just doing it for me, but you're also making pathways for other women. So don't be afraid to create pathways, to advocate for other women in the space, because as an independent worker, sometimes it's a challenge. You you approach women, leaders, and you say, I've heard of this opportunity, I'm exploring about, no. This is for persons who had 20 years, 40 years. So who is going to take up, who's going to bring in new ideas? Who will bring a fresh perspective? Who will challenge those ideas? Whatever it is that the company, the agency, the space would have had. So don't be afraid to allow other women to take a space as well, to advocate on behalf of other women, and to just allow women to be. It's important that we just allow women to be. Don't be afraid of that.
Lisa, anything else?
Yes, I just want to piggyback a bit on what Coretta said, and also Deborah. I'm reminded of this quote by this black woman writer from the US, and she says, I am not free as long as another woman is not free, right? Even though her shackles might be different from mine. Right? And I think that's a very important one, and one that we need to reflect on. So in part, this work really has to do a lot with ourselves as women individually, and having a greater understanding of ourselves and values, but also looking at our current systems that we are existing within. These systems were not created for us. Right? And so we need to continue to rock that boat. And these systems, when we rock them, it is not only for the benefit of women and girls, but men and boys. And I want to reiterate that, because I often hear when women are in certain spaces, there's always a set of women. Yes, it will continue to be a set of women, because the men in those positions of certain power are continuing to reproduce these harmful to men as well. So let's continue to rock that boat, and just to remind that even though one woman's shackles may be different from mine, despite her race, ethnicity, wherever she's located, I am not free unless she's also free. Thank you.
I think, excellent. I think that's a great way to end the discussion. I'm so happy that the panel, we've given Guyanese women quite a bit of good information as to what they can start to do right now. We talked about taking your space in the discussion, speaking out. We talked about being confident, about raising children differently, your communities, and we know that the struggle continues. At the end of the day, we're not going to be given anything on a platter, as we've heard there. We have to grab it. And we're the ones that make sure that the entire family is okay. So it's not just for us women. It's for families, for communities, and goodness gracious, we've got such a crazy world. So definitely it will impact a better world. So thank you to Onika, to Carlotta, Deborah, Rosalinda, and Lisa, and myself. Thank you all. And of course, the Brand Youth. It's a wrap.